What's up, guys? I got another Halloween script here for you that almost happened. This one is called Halloween Returns and was written by Marcus Dunstan, the guy who directed the Collector films. So originally, they were going to go forward with the Rob Zombie movies and make Halloween 3D, but since that was obviously a terrible idea, they went this direction instead. So Halloween Returns follows the events of the very first film and ignores every other sequel in the series. It takes place on the very same night as Michael Myers gets put on death row. So, starting off, the film takes place in Russellville, Illinois, as opposed to Haddonfield. Why? I don't know. They don't really say. A girl named Karen is running from Michael amidst a bunch of other chaos. So basically, I guess, there's cops everywhere, and people are running around panicked, and he's just walking around stalking people. And I'm guessing that the incident with, Loomis and Laurie just happened, and this is after that. So he's stalking this girl, and it's filmed through his point of view, which is something they haven't really done at this point. I mean, yeah, in the first one, when he was a little kid, they did, but not like this. So he shows up at Deputy Hunt's house and walks in and immediately kills his wife. And then he sees a little boy sitting in his room, who's probably Hunt's son, and he just witnessed his mom getting killed, what the fuck? But Michael bypasses him completely and goes to the older sister's room, where she's hiding in the closet. And this scene plays out a lot like the one from Halloween 2018, so maybe this is the inspiration for that. But anyway, he goes up to the closet door and stabs through it, and he stabs the sister, and then he yanks her out of there and throws her down the stairs. At this point, Hunt shows up with a bunch of other cops, and they try to, ambush Michael. And you would think that Loomis would be, right behind him, but no. We hear a voice on the radio say that they just found Loomis and Laurie down the street, so that's not the case here. Instead, in walks the new Loomis, which is a guy named Paul Rogers. He's just another doctor from another clinic, I guess. But anyway, he just walks in and tells Michael to stop, and I'm guessing it's a lot less aggressive than Loomis would have done it, but Michael just gets on his knees and submits. And yeah, that was the opening scene. So, let's keep going. After a pretty interesting title sequence full of Michael Myers-shaped pumpkins, we time jump to 10 years later, where Deputy Hunt is now the sheriff, Dr. Rogers is overseeing Michael instead of Loomis, and Michael is now on death row. And we have Sophia, who's the final girl of the film, and also she's Rogers' daughter. Enter a bunch of partying teens like any other slasher film, who basically exist just to die. But then, of course, there's Sophia, who's the contrast. She's more of a Laurie Strode type. So he did the same thing Loomis did for 10 years and tried to find reasoning in Michael's behavior, but to no avail. He pretty much tells him there's no place for him among the living and that he needs to die. Michael, of course, has no reaction to that. He just sits there quietly. He's maskless in this scene, but his face is hidden in shadow, which is good because I don't want to know what he looks like. And then Noah Hunt, which is the little boy all grown up, wants revenge for Michael killing his mother and his sister, so he and Sophia sneak into Michael's execution when he's getting, the lethal injection. And of course, it takes place on, yep, you guessed it, Halloween. So, there's a crowd seated waiting to watch everything unfold, and they bring Michael out. They strap him to the table, and they're administering the chemicals to him, and then it goes back into Michael's point of view, and he spots Sophia in the crowd, which then causes him to go into a rage. I'm not sure why, because they haven't really interacted at all, but I guess he knows that, something's going on, or maybe he can tell that it's Roger's daughter. I don't know. So he's trying to break out of the restraints as this medical team comes in, and they're trying to, fix the IV that, ripped out of his arm. It's just a bunch of chaos. Everything's, falling to shit very quickly. They pull the curtain over the viewing window as they're trying to fix everything. And, of course, he easily breaks out of the restraints and kills the medical team one by one. He even like twists this guy's head around like 180 degrees. And yeah, it's pretty brutal. As this is going on, Rogers is trying to like see through the glass and see what's going on, but he can't see anything. And then suddenly a body gets thrown at the window and it cracks it, and he's like, what the fuck is happening? So Michael gets out, and then he fucks with the controls and lets out all the other prisoners, which causes a huge riot. And then as pandemonium ensues, Rogers is like following Michael down a hallway, and he's cut off by Karen. And I'm guessing she was there in attendance for the execution, but I don't know. So anyway, Michael picks her up, like he's about to choke slam her, and then he holds the knife out and drops her onto it. No, he doesn't stab her with the knife. He literally picks her up and drops her onto it. It's fucking crazy. And then after that, Rogers ends up in like this locker room area where he finds Sheriff Hunt. And then out of nowhere, there's a huge explosion that goes off in the room, which I guess was a trap placed by Michael, Home Alone style. And he was using it as a distraction to escape. So, as they're like coming to from the explosion, he just like walks right out the front door pretty much. After the incident, everybody assumes that Michael died in the explosion. But then Rogers pulls a Loomis and he's like going around trying to convince everybody that he's still out there. And of course no one's buying it. Because everybody's like super naive in these movies. And then we cut to a Halloween store where there's a TV in the background playing the Silver Shamrock commercial. That's a pretty cool nod to the originals. It pans over to a new pristine Shatner mask just hanging on the wall. And then Michael's bloodied hand reaches over and grabs it. I guess he puts it on, and then from here it goes back into Michael's point of view as he's walking out of the store. And yes, of course he killed the clerk. I mean, he's not just going to leave him alive. Once he goes outside, he immediately spots Sophia and her friends who are parked across the street at some liquor store. And she's the only one in the group that acknowledges him, because everybody else is just being a aloof fucking teenager, I guess. And they're getting ready to go to like this pumpkin patch party, so they're like trying to use one of the kids' fake IDs to get liquor. Meanwhile, back at Roger's house, his wife is on the phone with him, and he's trying to convince her to get the kid and leave the house because Michael's coming after them. And she's just being typical wife or whatever. Oh no, everything's fine, blah blah blah. So after she hangs the phone up, Michael appears behind her and jams a shard of broken glass right through her neck. I guess he's just not really leaving her much time to pack, is he? Hunt shows up at the house right after Michael leaves and finds her dying on the floor. Sophia, Noah, and the other kids are at this barn party that I was talking about at some pumpkin patch. And of course, Michael shows up there too and starts killing everybody. This is kind of reminiscent of that scene from Freddy vs. Jason in the cornfield where he's just like walking around fucking killing people left and right. This guy's like literally everywhere. But to be fair, he did steal a van and followed them from Noah's house. I left that part out. So anyway, Michael kills off the group of cliché teens, leaving only Noah and Sophia. Rogers and Hunt show up to the pumpkin patch and rescue the kids. And then it leads to a final showdown in a barn. Michael kills Hunt pretty anticlimactically, and then he grabs Rogers as the other cops pull up, surrounding the barn. Michael looks up and realizes that they're surrounded, so he comes running out of the barn holding a shard of glass. The officers open fire on Michael, immediately dropping him. And then Sophia realizes, wait a minute, that's not Michael. They just gunned down Rogers. So in between here and there, Michael grabbed Rogers and slit his tongue so he couldn't talk. And then he stabbed a shard of glass through his hand and made it look like he was holding it. And of course he put his mask over his head. Just another distraction, I guess. And as it turns out, Rogers isn't dead. Sophia runs over to check on him, and he's just barely alive, I guess. So the cops go into the barn to investigate and see the words, "This town will never be safe again," written on the wall in blood. Hold on. Since when can he read and write? And when has he ever written shit on the wall? Okay, so there was the Sam Hain thing in like the first one, but that was whatever. Then we see a heavily wooded area where Michael's standing off in the distance overlooking the whole situation. So he got away again. Sophia exits the barn and sees Michael. And then she does the typical thing where she looks away for a second and looks back, and he's gone. The end. So I like this script a lot. I mean, aside from him writing on the wall, it was kind of weird, but it feels like it could fit into the Halloween universe. I mean, it does kind of feel like it's a continuation of part one, in a way. And of course, this movie helps negate the fact that Michael and Laurie were siblings. I mean, there's a scene in there where Rogers was telling Sophia that Michael not only wants them dead, but he wants everyone dead. So, not just family members, but like literally everybody. Also, this negates like parts 4 through 6, like the Cult of Thorn situation, because that was purely based on him killing family members, and that's all bullshit now. Oh, and let's not forget about this. After the credits, we see Rogers recovering in a hospital bed, and he's talking to somebody off screen. He's telling them how he tried to help Michael for 10 years and how it didn't change anything. Then you hear the other person reply, "You speak of Michael Myers as if he were a man. Michael Myers was never a man. He is purely and simply evil." And then the camera pulls back to reveal he was talking to guess who? Loomis. And that's not even the crazy part. It's who's playing him. None other than fucking Gary Oldman. So that was pretty wild. They were going to put Gary Oldman as the new Loomis. And I guess it worked out to where he wasn't going to return for a sequel, but if the movie did well, then he would. Either way, it's Gary Oldman. Alright, so what did you think? Were there certain parts you liked? Maybe certain parts you didn't like? Let me know in the comments below. And be sure to stay tuned for some more scripts that never came to be. Alright, I'll see you later. What's up, guys? Today I'm going to talk about a Spider-Man film that never came to be. It was very similar to the Tobey Maguire version, only this one was going to be directed by James Cameron. The film was set for the mid-90s with Leonardo DiCaprio as Peter Parker. This version of Peter Parker was going to be more of an angsty teen as opposed to the quiet, soft-spoken versions that we know of. The origin is basically the same as the Tobey one. He gets bitten by a radioactive spider on a field trip, and later that day, the bite gives him the chills and a fever, and he passes out. When he wakes up, he's 30 stories up on the top of a building in New York, not knowing how he got there. Realizing that the bite changed him, Peter starts to test his newfound abilities, and instead of using them to help people, he just wants to make quick money. So he gets an agent and starts making TV appearances as Spider-Man. But the agent soon screws him over and steals all the money for himself. This pushes Peter down a dark path, causing him to let a criminal get away one night, resulting in the death of his Uncle Ben, who gets shot by the criminal. Spider-Man catches his uncle's killer and leaves him for the police, still trying to make the right choice. But when the police show up, they try to arrest Spider-Man instead. This pushes Peter even further down the dark path. This is where the villain comes in. A low-level criminal named Carlton Strand, played by Lance Henriksen, was fleeing from the cops in the desert when he entered a compound experimenting with electrical currents. Strand gets caught in a vortex of electricity that changes his DNA, kinda like Sandman in Spider-Man 3. And then he becomes Electro. Strand uses the power to steal information from the internet and alter certain data, and after that, he gains unimaginable wealth and builds a surveillance system around New York City that he can access at any time. So essentially he's like a Kingpin type crime boss, but Electro. After that, Spider-Man turns down an opportunity to side with Electro, and then Electro buys an entire TV network and hires J. Jonah Jameson to tarnish Spidey's reputation by any means necessary. And guess who would have played Jameson? Nope, not J.K. Simmons. This version was actually played by Arklay Ermy. I know, right? So as Electro's vendetta against Spider-Man grows, he hires random thugs from around the streets to dress as Spider-Man and do random villainous acts, even further tarnishing his name. At this point in the movie, with the city pretty much turning on him completely, Spider-Man actually considers taking stolen money from a criminal and keeping it for himself. But it's not until he chases down a group of thugs and one of them falls off the roof and dies that he realizes how low he's become. And I guess this is the truly lowest point in the movie. The only thing keeping him from crossing that line is his Aunt May, played by Maggie Smith. Yep, from Harry Potter. There were many actresses considered for the role of Mary Jane. Claire Danes and Molly Ringwald were a couple, but it was closer to being Robin Lively, the older sister of Blake Lively. And Drew Barrymore was even considered for the role of Gwen Stacy. Can you imagine that? MJ doesn't actually like Peter at first, but she loves Spider-Man. At one point, she uses Peter to get good grades on a science project that they do together, but eventually she warms up to him. After Peter finds out MJ's home life is pretty rocky, he reveals himself to her to be Spider-Man, and then she really likes him. Yeah, what a using bitch. With Electro's surveillance all around the city, he not only learns Spider-Man is Peter Parker, but also about MJ, and he sends a henchman out to get her. But it's not just any random henchman. He's a maintenance man named Boyd who works at a military base, played by Michael Biehn. Yep. Oh, what the fuck is that guy's name? I can't remember. From Terminator. He gets caught in a particle accelerator explosion that fuses his molecules to sand. Yes, Michael Biehn is the Sandman. So then, Sandman kidnaps MJ, and Spider-Man meets with them on the top of a building in New York. While Sandman has Spider-Man in a bear hug, Electro offers for him to join them one last time, showing off a huge pile of money they brought along. Spider-Man hesitates, and Electro shocks MJ literally to death, actually killing her. And then he revives her with electricity. Enraged, Spider-Man breaks loose from Sandman, turning him into a cloud of dust. Sandman reforms, and Electro starts generating huge bolts of electricity. As Spidey and Sandman fight, a bolt of electricity hits Sandman, turning him into molten glass as he explodes. Then the fight turns to Electro, and Spider-Man throws him literally off the building, letting him fall to his death. But wait a minute, doesn't Electro float? Anyway, after this, it's early morning, and Spider-Man takes the money and showers it down to the citizens on the street below. In the closing of the film, Peter and MJ are talking, and MJ tells him that she got accepted into a different college. And then that's pretty much where it leaves off. Oh, wait a minute, we're not done here. I forgot. After the treatment for the film was written, Cameron decided he actually wanted 3 villains in the film. Can you guess who the third one was? Dr. Octopus. But wait a minute, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger. Isn't that wild? So what happened exactly? Why didn't this film get made? Well, at the time, there's actually a lot of legal issues in regard to who owned Spider-Man, and it wasn't until around the early 2000s that Sony settled it and was able to make that 2002 movie. So I guess it was just a legal issue, and yeah, unfortunately we didn't get this version. But it definitely would have been crazy to see. And there you have it. I'm not sure about the specifics of everything, but that was pretty much James Cameron's Spider-Man. And it was going to be rated R, by the way. Would you guys have wanted to watch this one instead of the Tobey one? Yeah, me neither. Alright guys, well I hope you enjoyed it. Just a little trip down memory lane there. And I'll see you on the next one. What's up guys? Back with another Halloween script that never came to be. This one is a different version of Halloween 4 that was actually written by just a regular Joe. So, Malika Akkad bought all the rights to Halloween, but wasn't really sure which direction to take Michael Myers. So, he had a bunch of random people write scripts, and this is one of them. So, brace yourself. The film takes place after Halloween 2, with Loomis and Michael being taken to a hospital following the explosion. Loomis is hurt, but not that badly. Michael, however, has severe burns over almost his whole body. So they airlift Michael on a stretcher and head to a hospital in Chicago. Why Chicago? Why not? As they're over Lake Michigan, the cord holding Michael's stretcher breaks, dropping him into the lake. Really? Was it old, or did Michael just, break it? Who knows? Anyway, sometime later, we see Laurie Strode talking with a psychiatrist. And guess who her doctor is? Any guesses? Loomis. Yep, that's right. So since the events of Halloween 2, Laurie has become a successful journalist and is the head of a popular magazine company. She also has a family as well, with a husband and a child. So, she keeps having PTSD about the earlier films, but doesn't remember who Michael Myers is. At all. Loomis tries treating her PTSD with hypnotherapy, which doesn't really sound like a great idea. One time, during a session while she's under, she jolts out of her sleep and remembers Michael and everything that happened. Later on, she's looking through some old photos and finds some of her with Michael in the background, like he was watching her. Well, you know what? If I lived there, I would definitely get the fuck out. So then, Laurie's doing an expose on a rock star. It doesn't really say who exactly, but it says it's like a Sammy Hagar type person. And I guess that fits the whole 80s vibe this film's giving off so far. So Michael then shows up at the rock star's mansion, and here's where shit gets really weird. In a typical fashion, Michael kills the rock star and also some random groupie he was hanging out with. And then, he goes into the rock star's closet and puts on not only a leather jacket, but leather pants and black gloves. Yep, that's what the script says. Oh, and it gets worse. So the rock star has a Porsche, and Michael gets the keys, throws them up in the air, and catches them, like he's some kind of badass or something. Yeah, you look real cool, Michael. Great. Could you imagine if that was in the actual movie? Like, holy shit. So Michael drives the Porsche, even though he doesn't know how to fucking drive, and he ends up next to Laurie in traffic. But she doesn't notice him at all. And then, as he drives away, he loses control of the car and crashes into a movie theater, killing like 13 people or so. Ironically, the movie the people were in line to see was, wait for it, Halloween 4. I know. So after this, Laurie and Loomis realize that Michael is back, and she races home, where we get our final battle. But before she can make it home, Laurie has an aunt staying with her who gets killed by Michael by sticking her arm down a garbage disposal. Oh, that's pretty brutal. And then Michael kills Laurie's husband, Bob Style, from Halloween 1. He tries to kill her daughter Stephanie, but then I guess she leads him into a chase or something. And while this is going on, Loomis goes to Michael's grave, which of course he finds empty. So here's the finale. Laurie shows up at her house finally and beats Michael with a fire poker, eventually jamming it into his head. The fight leads them out into the backyard near her swimming pool. Meanwhile, Loomis steals a van that had the brakes already cut and heads to Laurie's house. They don't really explain how the brakes got cut, but yeah. So Loomis shows up and crashes the van into a light pole right outside their house, and the light pole falls into the pool. Laurie shoves Michael into the pool using a rake, and for whatever reason, he grabs a wire from the pole and attempts to climb out of the pool. This results in him getting electrocuted, Marv style, like from Home Alone. Yeah, like that. And then, Michael explodes. Let me repeat that in case you didn't hear me. Michael explodes. Yeah, that's not the way I would have ended things, but okay. So the closing scene is a shot of Michael's grave, which has a quote on it that says, "For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come." The end. So that was something. I mean, yeah, Michael with a leather jacket driving a Porsche. I don't know about that one. That was kind of fucking weird. I like the Lori storyline though, with her being a successful journalist struggling with PTSD. I mean, that makes a lot of sense after what happened in part 2. So this is what they were going with, I guess, until they found out Jamie Lee Curtis wasn't going to come back to do another Halloween film. And they had to scramble to take her out of the script. What resulted after that was, instead of Laurie having the PTSD, they gave it to Loomis instead. And they gave Laurie's aunt a bigger role in the movie. Also, in this rewritten script, Michael doesn't explode at the end. He falls over, and when the police show up, he's gone. So, if you ask me, that's much more like Michael-esque, and I think that works a lot better. Well, there you have it. Michael Takes Chicago. That's not the official name, but that's what I'm calling it. What did you guys think? Did you prefer this version to the actual Halloween 4? Because if you did, you're fucking crazy. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and of course I'll see you on the next one. Howdy y'all! What's up guys? On this video I'm going to talk about yet another script that never came to be. This is the story of George Romero's Resident Evil. Back in 1998, George Romero, the famed zombie film director, wrote a script for a film adaptation of the popular Capcom game series, Resident Evil. However, the studio stated that his version would cost way too much to bring to life. It would have basically been a film version of the first game, taking place in the Spencer Mansion, with the STARS team going in to investigate. Chris Redfield, Jill Valentine, Albert Wesker were all going to be in it. Well, more or less, but I'll get to that. It was going to feature pretty much everyone from the first game, however, there are some extreme changes. Chris Redfield, for example, is not part of STARS. He's this Native American guy who's like an environmentalist, basically. His girlfriend, Jill Valentine, is on the STARS team, but instead of being part of the RPD, STARS is now funded by Umbrella. So they're basically the UBCS. With that considered, let's get into the actual script. So, Chris Redfield is in the Arklay Mountains with Jill. He's got some cabin or some place where he's been living out there, and he's been catching fish and doing nature type shit. Anyway, the outbreak happens in Raccoon City, and it gets overrun, so they evacuate everyone, and then Jill gets a call to head to the Spencer Mansion with the STARS team. At this point, Chris hasn't yet seen her in action, and decides to follow the STARS team to the mansion. When they get there, they're ambushed by a pack of Cerberus, just like in the game, and get chased into the mansion. So at least that's similar. The puzzles and traps are mostly present, with the team having to solve them to progress. But it's never really Chris or Jill by themselves. They traverse the mansion in a group, so that's a thing. From there, they run into zombies, hunters, and even Plant 42, or some variation of it. Later on, the team's crawling around in an air vent and ends up getting separated by Plant 42, with Chris and Rebecca having to fight it. Some other things happen, and it all leads up to fighting the Tyrant. Yes, the Tyrant. Done correctly, too. At some point, Chris, Jill, and I'm guessing Barry make their way down to the lab where they're confronted by Wesker, who, just like in the game, betrays them, wanting to steal the Tyrant's DNA and profit off of it. However, the Tyrant gets unleashed and Wesker and Barry have to fight it. Wesker ultimately gets killed, and then the fight bleeds out onto a helipad where Chris blows the Tyrant up with a rocket launcher. Then the team escapes, just not only as the mansion, but Raccoon City itself gets blown up. The end. This all sounds way too good to be true. Well, I mean, aside from the weird Native American Chris part. But yeah, having Plant 42 and the Yawn and all this other stuff, the studio said they just don't have the budget for it, so it never came to be. I think it would have been a decent film. I mean, way better than the one we got back in 2002. And yeah, I'm not really sure about that whole Native American Chris thing. Why not just make him part of STARS? Why not just do it accurate? But anyway, this is just one of the ones that sound cool that never happened. So, take it for what it is. Alright guys, well I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the next one. Once upon a time, we were going to get a Resident Evil series called Arklay. It would have been very different from any of the games in that it was more or less a detective show. Let's take a look. Back in 2014, there was going to be a television series called Arklay, based on Resident Evil. It was going to be produced by a small company called Mance Media and directed by Sean Liebert, based on the investigation of the initial cannibal murders in the Arklay Mountains prior to the mansion incident. The series was going to follow Detective James Reinhardt as he gradually uncovered Umbrella's conspiracy surrounding the murders. When Detective James Reinhardt is thrust into a series of bizarre homicides, he unravels the city is hiding a dark conspiracy. Learning a fatal virus is connected to it all, Reinhardt discovers it's already coursing through him. With time no longer on his side, he must solve the conspiracy to save his own life. Resident Evil fans may recognize Arklay as the setting for many memorable moments featured in both the original video game series and feature film. This mysterious mountain region is home to a number of decrepit mansions, sinister laboratories, secret research facilities, and is even known as the birthplace of the zombie T-virus itself. At some point in the series, Reinhardt would be infected with the T-virus, a bioengineered virus that turns people into zombies, and would have to race to find a cure. Sounds cool, right? Well, for whatever reason, Mance Media passed on the pitch, and that was it, forgotten in time. Until a few years ago, when the test footage used to pitch the show surfaced on the internet. It's a little short titled Dave, which shows Reinhardt investigating his own brother's murder.
You heard the call.
Where is he? Where is he, Tracy?
Listen, no, Jim, listen to me.
What?
You don't want to see this.
Why didn't you call me?
You know why I didn't call you. You know what they would have done. Let me handle this. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. No forced entry. No sign of a struggle. The trajectory of the bullet destroyed his jaw and nerves. Block's registered in his name.
I was with him when he bought it. The notes in his wallet.
Burglary doesn't look like a motive.
a cigar?
What's that?
Check the humidor. There should be 2 missing.
Maybe it's not for one.
No, he didn't. They were party favors. Something he offered special guests.
Scotch.
Poker and politics.
What does that mean?
Not a Scotch man. Only had company.
I guess tonight's different. Look, I don't have to tell you you're too close.
I've seen enough suicides to know.
Over a cigar?
And a Scotch.
Jimmy, I think you're...
He's got a wedding anniversary in 2 weeks. His daughter's graduated from high school. He just got promoted to paradigm because I know him.
I can't care about what you know. Only what I can prove.
Fuck what you can prove. This is my brother.
Did you know the family was out of town this weekend?
No.
Yeah. Ellie's not just graduating. She's touring one of the most expensive medical programs in the country.
She got him.
Last week. It's a private school. And Dave was on the hook for all of it. Are you aware that his former partner is suing him for $5 million?
What?
Look, you know if it's not on the board, I can't play it. And right now, nothing on the board says anything other than what this looks like. My hands are tied.
I knew you would know. It's gonna be the CCTV
And I'll be pulling teeth.
about Prince and that angle of the gun.
Jim! I know how to run a goddamn crime. Are you ready for this? Vic looks like David Michael Reinhardt. Yeah, the brother.
The footage itself doesn't really seem to connect to Resident Evil at all. Well, you can kind of tell that's what it's about. Anyway, then, Capcom and Sony both declared the show a hoax and said it had nothing to do with them. Which could have meant that if this show would have happened, they couldn't reference anything from Resident Evil at all. Ultimately, it just never happened. There's speculation that the hype for the series started on YouTube. As far as it being a hoax, there were actual photos of a storyboard drawn out and a script for the pilot, so I don't think that's true. In addition to that, some people think that the footage from Arklay was just a publicity stunt, put out by fans who hoped Capcom would pick up on the idea and make the show. So that's that. An interesting concept, but one that never came to be. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy the rest of Resident Evil month. I'll see you on the next one. Alright guys, back with yet another forgotten script that never saw the light of day. If you like these types of videos, I got all these unmade scripts from a book called Taking Shape 2. It's available on Amazon and is packed with all kinds of different Halloween scripts that never made it to the big screen. Anyway, this video is dedicated to Logan. Thanks for supporting the channel, man, and being a big fan. Alright, so in the late 90s, there was a slasher craze sweeping the nation. We had films like Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer, Bride of Chucky, all seemed to fit this grungy teen angst aesthetic. A group of partying teens just trying to have fun despite their strict-ass parents. Late 90s rock, a serial killer terrorizing a small town. It was pretty much copy and paste at the time, but that doesn't mean that we don't love it, right? On this video, I'm going to talk about a version of Halloween H2O that never happened, so check it out. This version of Halloween H2O was written by Kevin Williamson, the guy who wrote the original Scream script. Back in the late 90s, following the Thorn trilogy, Kevin Williamson was hired to write a sequel that would further that storyline. I think it was originally supposed to be called The Revenge of Laurie Strode. But anyway, it's far from the Halloween H2O we actually got. So, this one opens up the same way we remember, with Joseph Gordon-Levitt and his buddy going into Nurse Marion's house and getting killed off. We meet Carrie Tate, who's still the headmistress of Hillcrest Academy, and of course is actually Laurie Strode. She still has a son. The difference is, Josh Hartnett's character is called Mick in this one. He has a strained relationship with his mom and wants to go live with his dad. At one point, Laurie's in a classroom where they are discussing fate, just like in the original '78 film. Sarah, some bitchy student, then brings up the Michael Myers murders and more or less explains the events of the last 6 movies. She even mentions Jamie Lloyd, so she's still canon in this version. The guidance counselor, Will, he's there, but his name is Jake now. He's concerned because Laurie is pretty much an alcoholic. I mean, well yeah, after all the trauma she's endured. And when he tries to bring this up to her, she flips out and is like, "Thanks, Jake, for your well-intentioned and over-boundary stepping concern. But just for your own personal file cabinet info, let me give you a quick flash lesson in the life of an alcoholic. Let me share with you my experience, strength, and hope, because I've done the AA thing, I've been in therapy, I've done the vomit pills, the moderators club, you name it. I've tried every little 80s self-help tactic devised, and you know what I've discovered? In addition to the unconditional love of absolute citron, is that alcoholism isn't a negative in the 90s. It might have been self-destructive at one time, but it's a big plus in present-day USA, because the world is not kind. It is harsh, and cruel, and bloody out there, and if my 2 aspirin a day comes in the form of a nice half-gallon of Robert Mondavi, then so be it. And I can go to all the little 12-step meetings in the world, and I can say, "Hi, I'm Carrie Tate, and I'm an alcoholic." And everyone can hold me and tell me everything's going to be fine with Carrie once she quits drinking. But what you seem to be missing from your loving and non-judgmental point of view is that Carrie doesn't exist. At the end of the day, the Halloween mask comes off, and it's Laurie Strode who has to find a way to get to sleep at night without a butcher's knife slicing into her dreams. So, she's basically masking her trauma with alcohol. I mean, we all do that, don't we? Anyway, back to Mick. He actually didn't know his mom was really Laurie Strode, or that he was related to Michael Myers. He does find out eventually, and then pulls a prank in the school locker room where he's wearing a Michael Myers mask, because I guess he's trying to get in trouble so he can get sent to go live with his dad, like I mentioned before. Later on, the school's having a dance. The real Michael arrives and kills the security guard, which is not LL Cool J, but some lady named Harriet. At the dance, Molly, Mick's girlfriend, has a run-in with Michael, but gets away. She tells Laurie what happened, and they try to evacuate everyone without causing a mass panic. The cops get called but are unable to reach Carrie and the rest because the only way into the school is blocked. There's a tunnel that leads to the school that serves as the only entrance, but it gets blocked by a car accident that Michael caused. This is where things get really bad. So, unable to drive through, the police take a helicopter into the school and land. 4 cops head in to search for Michael, while Jake and another officer load kids into the helicopter to take them to safety. Just then, Michael appears and kills the pilot, leaving Jake to fly the helicopter on his own. Wait, what? Well, that doesn't end well because Jake crashes the helicopter immediately, killing all the kids and himself. What an idiot. Laurie witnesses the crash, and then her, Mick, and Molly escape in a school bus. But, as they're driving away, of course, Michael's clinging to the top of the bus. As they head down the tunnel, Mick and Molly are fighting Michael when the bus suddenly flips over. Michael ultimately kills Molly, and then Mick more or less beats the shit out of him. As this is going on, another police helicopter sees them, and then a bunch of cops rush down the tunnel at Michael. It's kind of similar to that Halloween 6 scene where he's fighting off all of like the doctors in like that surgical room with the strobe light. Kind of like that. In typical fashion, he kills them all off one by one. And then Laurie runs to the helicopter and gets in as Mick leads Michael out of the tunnel. Then, somehow, Laurie flies the helicopter. See, all these people just know how to fly a helicopter? Like, really? But here's the finale. Are you ready for it? So, as Michael emerges from the tunnel, Laurie flies towards him, tilting the blades down, and cuts him in half. The end. Alright, so, not what you were expecting, was it? I mean, how did Laurie know how to fly a helicopter? Anyway, the highlight of this one to me was the crazy tunnel fight with the cops. And, had it have been made, this one was going to have basically the same score and soundtrack that Scream did. So, picture that. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed it, and don't forget to check out Taking Shape 2. I'll see you later.